Good evening, everybody. My apologies. StreamYard didn't seem like it wanted to let me go live today. Hopefully, you guys are seeing me on screen. I do and can hear me. If you are not seeing me or not hearing me, please let me know down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. I want to welcome everybody to another live discussion this Friday evening. I'm very much looking forward to having this conversation with you guys tonight, not only here in the live chat, but of course, anybody who is happening along and watching the replay. As I have said in the previous live discussions, please know that just because the live portion of our conversation has ended does not mean that the conversation has got to stop. That is the beauty of having the comment section down below in these saved videos. You are more than welcome to watch at your leisure, watch it, come back to it, think about the things that have been discussed. I encourage you to leave comments in the posted video. Of course, everybody here in the live chat, you do have the opportunity to express yourself. I'm going to do my very best to ensure that everybody is getting as much as possible is able to contribute to the conversation. I do want to encourage everybody who is here with me tonight in the live chat. Please know that just because I happen to be the one that's sitting here on camera, I am just facilitating the conversation. And I do look forward to the comments, the perspective, the opinions that you may have. And I do invite you to share those in the chat. As I have said before, and I want to re-emphasize this evening, that this is a safe space. Um, and what I mean by it is a safe space, I mean that I welcome all opinions. I welcome all perspectives. I welcome those opinions and perspectives provided that they are communicated in a mature and respectful manner. I do my very best, again, to hopefully express to you guys perspectives, opinions, and facts. And I want to continue to do that. And I think that it is incredibly important to have diverse opinions in the comment section. I think engaging that does help engage in conversation. And I think it's even more important if we look at topical issues, especially with tonight's discussion about toxic environments and toxic behavior. Um, that we do have people that have different perspectives. I think that it's, the saying is you're preaching to the choir. And as nice as it is to I think we often feel comfortable speaking to people that share similar perspectives as ourselves. But I think that it is far more informative. And I do think that it does help us along life's journey the more that we can better understand somebody else's perspective. So do know in the comments if you have a disagreeing perspective or opinion, you are welcome to voice that here. And I do want to say this to everybody that is, especially here in the live comments, that because I am the facilitator and this is, as I said, I am inviting different perspectives. The last thing that I would want to see is somebody expressing, especially in a constructive and respectful manner. Um, I don't want to see people attacking that person. Um, I, I am wanting that is part of these conversations. So, when we're talking about toxic behavior, an example of toxic behavior is when we say, I am in, especially as the facilitator, is that if I am inviting in different opinions and perspectives, and then we have a group of individuals that then are attacking that person with a different perspective, that's an example of toxic behavior. And I do not want that to be here, especially when I think it is incredibly important that we have different voices at the table. So please just remember that. And again, that does apply, of course, to anybody that is leaving comments in the posted video. As I have said before and will continue to say, I really do encourage you, if you would like to leave a comment, to not just leave a comment, but read the comments that other individuals are leaving. I encourage you to engage in conversation with them. And I have set up to this point that in reading the comments, people have by and large been able to do that. And I applaud that. And it's an amazing thing. And I want to continue to foster that kind of an environment. Now, speaking about those previous comments, as I have done the last three times, want to continue to do is to go back to last week's conversation and to pull out the top comments. And I would like to share those. And I think in doing that, again, allowing people a voice at the table, I think is very important. And I do think that it actually helps facilitate this week's topic of conversation. So, the the top comment, if you will, is coming from Miss October. My goodness. That's right. I mean, bottom line, Lisa summed it up for us nicely. It's just that simple. It's just plain nice, you know? Thank you, Lisa. Our top comment from last week's conversation was, of course, the power of bad influence. We talked about the influencer culture across social media. The number one comment came again from Miss October, who says, I never comment, but I like watching you. Well, get it, Miss October. Boy, she never comments, and I don't know if she's going to comment again after I'm high. She says, I never comment, but I like watching you. I had to stop watching a reseller's videos and sales because I feel like they frequently hint at reasons why they need money, like in almost every single video. This needs fixed. We need a new one of that, and so on. Their kind and generous fans often give them donations of money and gifts. They have a wish list and will even tell people about what they put on the wish list. If someone doesn't bid on one of their items, you can see the look of disappointment on their faces. It probably makes their fans feel guilty. I just had to stop watching them. Interestingly enough, we have Jennifer Stout, who's coming in to actually support that comment by saying, I was coming here to say something similar. Um, and again, last week's topic of conversation, well, thank you, Otto. Last week's topic of conversation um, again was about influencers, and it was about the ability to, of course, influence people's opinions and perspectives. And a lot of it, and again, this is, and I want to be very clear when I state this, that in my perspective, in other words, in my opinion, the influencer culture very much is a very transactional kind of culture. It is an individual, a person with a platform who is utilizing that platform to generate revenue above and beyond creating content. Um, More so vis-a-vis through paid sponsorships, through links. There's a wide variety of different ways in which one can capitalize off of their platform, i.e., their viewing audience. And I think Miss October's is alluding to one of the ways in which a content creator and or apparently a reseller can do that. This has been a topic that we have touched on in the past, more specifically when Misty and I were doing Vintage Rescue Squad. Um, here's the deal, and I think this is one of those things where it's subjective. Most of what we've talked about outside of the facts of goodwill has been subjective. I have to say this is if hello everybody in the um, LaDonna is putting up a really interesting comment here, and I kind of want to read this out loud. Based on my previous comment, how much respect, girl, let me look at your last comment. I gotta scroll up here. Okay, here we go. So let's start here. LaDonna's given it to us tonight. I've been seeing some extremely toxic behavior happening in the storage reseller groups, which what's even more concerning is the viewer reactions. Creators wield quite a bit of power with their audiences. Let's follow that up. Based on my previous comment, how much responsibility does an influencer have on how they negatively impact another person's life when viewers turn on the person portrayed in their videos? Um, LaDonna, I think that's a deep one, and that is certainly something that we didn't really dive into in the previous conversation in the reseller, or pardon me, the influencer video. And I think that LaDonna has brought up kind of the bridge between our previous video and our previous discussion and tonight's discussion is that, and what I said, and I do believe it to be true, that, a lot of the influencing culture does have to do with money, monetary gain. Um, and to LaDonna's point, is that sometimes when there is a disagreement between two individuals, and keep in mind that it's when you have, as LaDonna is illustrating, a storage content reseller. So they're buying storage units. Typically, they can look at it, but they can't really get into it. And you have a disagreement within that community, and you have somebody then that leverages that disagreement to influence the opinion of their viewing audience. They manipulate that opinion based on their own experience, and then they provide that in content form for others to consume, and it influences then the viewing audience opinion about somebody else. And LaDonna, I'm really happy that you brought that up, because I think that that is one of the largest examples of toxic behavior that does exist. And I want to be very clear with this evening's conversation is that, as I have said in the past, I am not going to say this person. I have clearly had I have had many experiences over the course of the last 3.5 years, being both a content creator and a reseller. They have been both bad and good. There have been experiences that I have personally been involved in, that I have personally, um, that things have been said and done in which to not only publicly but privately sway people's perspective and or opinion of me. And I have also observationally witnessed that same or similar kind of behavior exerted on other individuals. And I also want to make sure that I'm very clear that, as I said in the last video, is that while I am not going to say, oh, this person did this, I don't think that it actually helps any kind of a situation. And quite frankly, I think by giving a name to specific behaviors actually contributes to a toxic environment. So the last thing that I want to do is to get up here and then my very self engage or to perpetuate that kind of behavior. The importance behind this evening's conversation is, and I think that I would be lying through omission if I did not just flat out say that, and I'm going to be very truthful and I'm going to be very transparent with you all, is that in many ways, and unfortunately for me, in too many instances, I have been the target of toxic behavior, and I have there have been moments where I have addressed it. I have never called somebody out by name. I don't feel that it's appropriate. I feel that I feel, and again, this is a perspective, that as a mature adult, whether or not we conduct business online, like there's somebody legit real on the other side of that. So if you and I can't work out whatever difference it is that we got going on between us, the last thing that I am going to do is to make you, the very people who have provided me a platform, I am not going to drag you in and drag you down into what I feel is my own personal disagreement with somebody else. Um, so yeah, anyhow, I'm kind of rambling. Um, but what I want to make clear to you is that while um, I want this conversation to be informative. I want it to be illuminating. I want this conversation to not be negative, but I do believe that we can gain positive things from this, especially as consumers. And what I mean by a consumer is somebody that is consuming content, whether it be here on YouTube, whether it be on Instagram, whether it be on TikTok or Facebook, but wherever it is that you are consuming, kind of like your influencer, your content creator, your reseller, and it doesn't even have to be vintage and antiques. This kind of behavior is not exclusive, and that fact is not lost on me either. That this kind of toxic behavior, toxic environments, it's not some novel thing that exists solely within the reseller community. It's not something that exists solely within the vintage and or antique resellers, because it's human nature. And I think that, again, speaking to the point that we talked about last week, is that you got to know who you are. Um, you got to know who you are when you are getting into this fundamentally, morally, ethically, because it can get very gray very quickly. And you can find yourself in environments that you traditionally, if you were in real life, were working with shoulder to shoulder, working with people, you can find yourself in environments that you traditionally would not. You can find yourself surrounded by individuals who are engaging in behavior that if it were like real life, if we were working with one another, in an office space, that it would be very clear. Hey, I don't want anything to do with that. But it's a much trickier kind of environment when we are fundamentally all strangers. We're all pulled together, which is an amazing thing. We are all pulled together by vintage and antiques, but we fundamentally don't know who one another are. Even in our real lives, it clearly takes a lot of time to really get to know somebody, who somebody is fundamentally, right? Not if they're a nice person, but if they are a kind person. What is residing within, for lack of a better word, their heart, you know? Um, and it takes much more time when you are not interacting with that person in real life. And it is much easier to, or I should say, it's more difficult to get to know somebody um, over the internet, via video chatting and, you know, in community chats. Um, and I have seen that occur not just on the content creator and or reseller side. I have seen that occur with consumers, that are engaging here in the chat. And then it's over time that you're like, oh, you think about what? Oh, you think it's cool to do that? Oh, well, I don't, and then you're kind of like, if we had known each other in real life and I was seeing these behaviors, would I have really invested or would you continue to invest in that relationship? So, but again, I want to be clear, I keep derailing, um, that in part of this conversation is, I think, no, I don't think. Part of this conversation, owning it, is the release of a lot of what I think that I have carried. I have very much tried to operate in the philosophy of, they go low, you go high. And I do want to continue to do that. However, I think that my fundamental understanding of what going high can mean. I think that going high can mean when somebody is treating you in a specific way. Look, a couple of years ago, and I will own it, Michael a few years ago would have popped off at the mouth, would have had no problem being like, if this is the way you want to do it, then this is the way we're going to roll. I'm going to go up, down, left, right, front, and center, and then we're going to call it a day. Like, and I'm not going to have no remorse on it. Like, don't start now, won't be none, right? Like that. And that person does admittedly still exist within me. But as I have grown, as I have hopefully matured, I am better able to compartmentalize that portion, um, and try to engage in a more productive, for myself, a more productive and mature way of addressing those things. I think for me, I'm working with that. It was like the pendulum was going far to the left and then it went far to the right. It was very reactionary and then it was very non-reactionary. And I don't know that going high is not having any reaction. I think that oftentimes, when you're being treated a certain way and you don't set a boundary for yourself, when somebody is trying to when somebody is trying to portray you in a specific way, especially in a way in which you're like, what is going on? Um, that you can address it, that you don't have to just be like, well, I'm going to take the high road. No, I'm going to take the high road. I'm going to address it as a mature adult human being, but I'm going to let you just get away with it now. That would be foolish to me. Um, so, yeah, part of this, again, is admittedly catharsism. For me, it is, I think, in many ways, publicly putting out the experiences, commenting on the behavior, but not, I don't want to get in on an individual. Some of the behaviors that were directed at me, and or some of the behaviors that I had witnessed, some of it was years ago, and I don't know how or where these people stand in their personal lives or how they are interacting or dealing in their personal lives at this point. And I do believe that people can grow and people can change. Just as I said, Michael in some of these situations years ago would have reacted in a much different way in which I react now. So I do believe that people can change, but my bigger issue is that when the behavior is perpetuated. Okay. Let's get back to these comments here, though. And I know that many of you have been in the chat, and I do apologize. I've got the chat frozen on my end. So I'm going to start. I'm going to do this. Before I start my talking points again, I want to see what you guys are saying in the chat. Okay. So thank you, Miss October, for feeling comfortable to bring that up. I will say this, just as a refresher, Ms. October is saying that sometimes she feels, and I am going to paraphrase Ms. October, I hope that it is okay. I'm reading it as part of the influence is that if I am up here on camera and I'm saying, geez, I'm really short on this bill, or oh gosh, this just broke down and I really got to sell this, that is part of an influence, that whatever is going on in my life, I'm using as leverage to influence you to buy something else. Here's the deal. And I think that, I don't know if it's the naive part of me or what, but I sincerely believe that if you demonstrate like integrity and truth and respect to your viewing audience, that they're going to be able to make their own decision. And whether or not they agree with it, you know, you're telling the truth. In other words, if you're saying, hey guys, I'm gonna start this sale off. We got to raise some money because my car just broke down. Let's hit it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, make no apologies in it. Like, step into it, lean into it, be honest with your audience. This is what's going on. Do you know what I'm saying? Look, if you can't buy anything, I got super stickers on. If you can donate $5, I would greatly appreciate it. but demonstrate the respect and do demonstrate that respect in behavior by being honest and upfront with your audience, the people that are supporting you and providing you even with the opportunity to do it. But give them the respect, give them the decision. And I think that's something that I kind of find really gross. Oops, I said it. That is a personal opinion. I'm not big on the influencer culture because I think that a lot of it is that it is deceptive by omission. In other words, you are not stating explicitly, this is what's going on. You're going to pay this, and if you pay this, then I'm making 30%, right? Give the people the opportunity to make their own decisions. But people don't want to come out and say, well, if you spend $100, I'm going to keep $20 of your $100, right? Even though you're buying this product, you're actually being upcharged so that I can make additional money off of that. Right? Because it gives you the ick. You're like, "Ooh, but geez, people might really be upset with me." Well, if you're feeling that way and people might be upset with you, then just own it, lean into it, and let people have the autonomy to make the decisions for them. If they want to throw you down the extra $20 on the $80 item, then let them make that decision, but respect. Again, an illustration of toxic behavior. Another comment that I do want to highlight here, there was a tie in two of the comments. We got Miss Susan Jackson coming in with us. She says, in regards to money, it's not about money to me. People think I am rich because I buy stuff for people. I'm so not, and we are poor, but the way I choose to live my life is to give to others. It means more to me to touch someone's heart, and that is my truth. Heart emoji. I know sometimes I might not have sent something, but that is so we can eat. Girl, we all got to eat. Miss Jackson, God love, God bless you, woman. You definitely are a valuable asset to the community, and it showed because other people were definitely supportive of your comment. We did have Miss Elizabeth White who tied with Miss Jackson's heartfelt message. Miss Elizabeth is saying, Michael, love your comment on facts, feelings, and opinions. So very insightful, especially in this crazy political arena. You can apply that logic to just about any topic and it still rings true. Very Socrates of you, Michael the philosopher. Elizabeth, of course, I appreciate it. It's very flattering to hear that. But what I do want to say is the point that you made about you can apply that logic to just about any topic and it still rings true. Elizabeth, I am so incredibly grateful, and that is incredibly motivational for you to have left that comment because as I have said, I really do think that if we talk about things like reselling, if we talk about toxic behavior, in the content creator world, these are not life-saving topics. However, I do believe that if we begin to approach smaller subject matter, things that are easily or more easily digestible than much more macro or life-altering kind of topics, that we begin to kind of work that muscle and flex that communicative muscle, and that we begin to acknowledge the difference between, oh, this fact is making me think some kind of way, and we don't conflate the two. So that way, when we are having a disagreement with one another, we are not perceiving the disagreement as a personal attack. Do you know what I mean? And I think to your point, and I do recognize and I want to acknowledge the fact that I think that a lot of the world that we are living in is very much driven by that I think misunderstanding is that the fact is the fact, and you and I may feel differently about it, and those feelings, or we think differently, which causes us to feel differently about it, but it doesn't alter the fact. And just because I'm thinking this way and you're thinking that way, it doesn't mean that we have to attack each other. It's just a difference of opinion. It's not that deep, right? There was another comment that I did want to read. It was from Miss Tracy Ingram, and then I'm going to go back to you guys here in the here it is in the live chat. Tracy is writing. Thank you, Michael. Your words. You can't build a positive position by tearing someone down. And then to that, someone asks, who are we talking about? Tracy says that isn't the point. It's the concept in general, the big picture of making your own decisions and who's the influencer or the influencers. 2 years ago, my husband and I retired from our business of 42 years. Tracy Girl, congratulations. Since then, I have been able to concentrate on my passion, which is vintage and antique, and to have the time to watch YouTube resellers. It didn't take me long at all to figure out who was genuine and who truly appreciated their consumers, pardon me, who wasn't pushing promoted items on their customers in content. So name dropping isn't necessary, and I applaud you, Michael Todd, for your professionalism. Thank you also for passing on your knowledge. Thank you, Tracy, so much for leaving the comment, and thank you to everybody who supported the highlighted comments from last week. And Tracy, I think that again, congratulations for the retirement. I hope that you all are enjoying your passion in vintage and antiques. And it is ultimately about providing you guys out there different perspectives. Tonight is very cathartic for me, though, too. No bones about it. Um, but it really is, I think, giving individuals critical thinking skills, sometimes different perspectives. So that way, when you are out there in this social media world, that you are better able to make, hopefully, more informed decisions on the kinds of content that you are consuming. Okay. So any old how. Let's get back into the live discussion. I'm here. I know that I was talking for quite a bit, and I just want to see what's going on. Everybody's being very social. We're loving one another. Um, Tyler, he has meh. He's Tyler. I think we've highlighted you before. I really appreciate the view. Good luck. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of shopping videos out there. Um, I wish you well in your journey. Let's see, what else do we got here? Um, Miss Stephanie is saying a toxic person only changes their victims, never themselves. Yes, it's so juvenile in high school. Let's be adults, seriously. Yes. Um, let's see, what else we got? Oh, Miss LaDonna, Stephanie, are you out there spitting the game, girl? Watch out. Stephanie's on fire, apparently. Let's see. What do we got going on here? Miss Resin Bell. I'm just, y'all, don't do me dirty now because some of y'all are writing long things. I don't know what you're putting in there. I can understand that, but also, too, there are people who abuse others and do so on a public platform. Those people being emboldened by their anonymity, those people deserve to be known, my opinion. Um, Okay, so Resin Bell, I'm loving it. Look, I'm back in my chair up. We're gonna get into it. You know what? I think Resin Bell is bringing up a really interesting topic, and this was something that was kind of rolling around in my head today. I have seen comments with regards to oh, name them and shame them, the vernacular kind of thing is put a name to it. You know what I mean? And I'm going to use some language right now. Look, it's getting dark. It's alive. There's a difference, and I firmly believe this. There is a difference between talking shit about somebody and talking about the shitty things that somebody else did. And as I have said before in last week's video, and I think I started to in this week's video, I'm going to reiterate that, and I'm going to own it, is that I'm speaking about a behavior, right? Yes, there are people that have engaged in the behavior in which I am speaking of. Um, I don't want to get into this weird back and forth kind of thing. I really truly don't. That's why I'm choosing not to. That's why I'm going to speak to the behavior. And again, I don't, I really, I see validity. I do. I genuinely see validity in saying, well, I think that it is important that you put a name to it because we should be aware, because maybe I'm not aware of what this person is doing. Um, and I think it's too fine a line, especially when we're talking about toxic behavior and toxic environments, to I may feel justified, but there are people out there who might feel just as justified making stuff up. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm not going to do it. Again, there's a difference between talking shit about somebody, making something up about them just because I don't like you or just because you did or said something that I don't like. So I'm gonna let everybody, I'm gonna do this, that, and every other, and I'm gonna manipulate the story so that people can think this way about you and that way about you. That's different. That's gossip, right? There is that. There is also a difference then in talking about the shitty things you did. No, you done did this. This is a fact. This is a fact. Fact is, you engaged in this behavior, and I'm just reporting on it. You know what I mean? And I am that person. I like to think that I don't. I just can't engage in that kind of behavior. I think that it's too fine of a line. I do. I think that it's such a fine line, and I do genuinely see validity in it. I sincerely do. Um, and I think that I'm on the fence about that one. And because I'm still on the fence, I'm choosing not to. Um, I think that, again, speaking to the behavior and allowing the people that are out there consuming it to make the determination for themselves is I think is more important and really is the impetus behind these conversations. I don't want to influence your opinion about somebody. Listen, a lot of these individuals flagrantly display this behavior. And I don't know if you noted in the actual title of the video is that I sincerely believe that it always takes two to tango. And what I mean by that is that when somebody is exhibiting behavior that is toxic, um, and there are people, to LaDonna's point earlier, and when there are people that then have subscribed, they're commenting, they're leaving thumbs up. When there is an individual who's been provided a platform by people that are supporting them, and they are witnessing this person engage in behavior that is detrimental, whether you agree with the opinion or not. See, and this is my big thing, because whether or not you agree with the actual opinion, it's the behavior that's the issue. When you see somebody exerting influence to get people to turn against or to devalue or to make that other person wrong, that person can only do that with the support of people who are consuming it. That's why these conversations are important to me, is because this isn't just about individuals that are on camera. There has to be ownership from all of us who are watching content creators or TikTokers or people on Instagram. If somebody is exhibiting this behavior and we continue to support them and or excuse it and support them, we're only providing them more space, and we are encouraging that person to continue to engage in that behavior because it is free of repercussion. Now, one of those repercussions to Resin Bell's point, is to name and shame, right? Say, this person is doing this. It feels a little, I just, because I gotta say, a lot of it, at the end of the day, it ain't that deep. I think that there are a tremendous amount of insecurities um, that do exist within um, content creators. Again, it's not exclusive to vintage and antiques. I think that many of you probably have a variety of different interests. You're not just, some of you may just be watching vintage and antiques. I think many of you out there have an array of different interests and you are engaged in different communities. And without fail, in all of the different communities, there's always disagreements, there's always the drama, there's always the toxic behavior. Um, and that is because it's part of the human condition. Not everybody gets along, right? I don't think that's a surprise or it's shocking to anybody out there. But I think the disappointing thing is not that everybody doesn't get along, but it's the way in which people then choose to behave in those situations. And then what is even more disconcerting to me, and I'm gonna shoot you all straight now. I am. He's gonna drop the truth bomb on you. The thing that is the most disconcerting isn't that an individual is engaging in toxic behavior. The thing that is most disconcerting to me is that people still continue to support an individual who is engaging in that kind of behavior. Again, it's not about the individual, it's about all of the people supporting it. Well, but Michael, you don't understand, and I'm sure they didn't really mean it like that, or well, they've got kids to feed, and they're I know. I'm sorry. No, he's getting closer to 50 than 40 at this point, halfway through life, God willing. Um, no. I you know, to treat somebody else poorly because whatever happened at the end of the day, and it's listen, true tea, true tea, 99% of this is because somebody heard some truth and they didn't like it. Somebody else was getting a little too much attention and they didn't like it. Oh, because somebody else went here and they didn't like it. Oh, because you talked to so and so and I don't like them, therefore, and they didn't like it. These are all like the vast majority of this stuff, like truly is so incredibly petty. Like on the back end, that's why I'm like, I don't know, don't got time for it, you know? Um, Jamie, the last thing I want to watch is people complaining about each other or rivalries. There are a lot of channels that rely only on disputes as content, really not talking about the reseller community. I absolutely agree with you, Jamie. Um, I know Jamie was on point last week when I had brought up the purposeful misinformation content that is very prevalent on TikTok and Instagram, and it is starting to come over onto YouTube. So that way, things are purposely misrepresented, things are purposely left out, things are, and they're typically they're either incredibly mundane things or they're very like, are you okay? Kind of things. And the reason is that it's done to drive engagement. So then people are like, why did you say it? Well, no, it's this. And you're leaving all of these comments, and by virtue of you leaving these comments, it's pushing, because the computer is just a computer, and it's like, hey, people are really engaged with this content, let's throw this content out to more people are really, they're buying into this. It's not making a distinction that people are like, that's wrong, are you okay? It's just like, yeah, let's put it out there more. And the same thing works with the whole drama kind of thing. There are people, believe it or not, that do operate from the perspective of, well, if I got beef with this person and we're going back and forth, um, it keeps people engaged, and then it evokes emotions, it evokes the thoughts, and it evokes the emotions and thoughts of y'all out there consuming it, and you become super engaged in the drama of it all. It's just meant to make money. It is just meant to make money. Like, but at the end of the day, that wouldn't be a thing if people weren't actively consuming it. Again, there's got to be ownership. It's again this whole, like I said, the whole blame game, right? It's the blame game. Like it's resellers' fault because Goodwill is raising their price. There's always got to be somebody wrong, but sometimes we got to take a step back and we got to own our own part of it and be like, well, damn, maybe I shouldn't be watching it so much. Because if I wasn't watching it, then maybe Susan wouldn't be watching it. And then if both of us aren't watching it, then maybe Jamie ain't watching it. And then if the three of us aren't watching it, then those six people over there aren't going to be watching it. Like sensationalism, self exploitation, the drama of it all, it's done to generate money. And again, a lot of the toxic behavior, it's all about money. It's all about popularity. It's all about perception. It's all about, who has the most viewers? Who is the name that you think of when you hear the word antique? When you see, I don't know. I don't have anything to grab here. When you see this iPad, is my name and face the first one that you think of? Um, a lot of it, again, it's very dramatic, it's very childish, and I think that it is very indicative of a tremendous amount of insecurities that I have seen a lot of people exhibit and not just own. And instead project those insecurities out on to other people. Um, what is to quote Shakespeare, "Thou doth protest too much." Typically, the people that are usually crying out the most, like victimhood, this person did that, that person is jealous of me, this person is copying me, this person's copying me. And not to say that that doesn't exist, because that is part of the toxic behavior. But usually the person that's constantly like, oh, this person, they're copying, and I did this, and I blah, 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 and they're typically the ones that are the source of it. Just saying. And the thing is that I think that all of this is such common sense in our own real lives. But then when we get onto YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, we somehow think, well, this isn't real life. No, it is. It is real life. I'm a real person. Some of you have met me in real life. The beefs, the drama, all of that stuff, it is between two living beings. And the more we engage with it, the worse that it gets. And it excuses, it promotes, it actually encourages individuals to continue to engage in that kind of behavior. And when we excuse that behavior, we are complicit in that behavior. I will say that that's an opinion, I guess, at the end of the day. As disheartening, truthfully, as that is to say, I have to recognize that as an opinion. Sad, but I think true. Um, Otto said, I'm sorry that you are having issues with creators. It's a YouTube thing. Please don't let it affect you. You are wonderful. Well, I know that I'm wonderful. I mean, really and truly, I do. Listen, I will say it. I'm not always a nice person. I am not, but I am a kind person. And I think that there is a tremendous difference. I am not I am not super invested in the way in which people do perceive me, but I am very invested in the way in which I treat other people. Does that make sense to folks? I really hope that that makes sense to a large swath of you. This is an instance, this point is definitely where I would like to be preaching to the choir right now because I don't want to feel alone in this mentality. Um, People can think how they want to think about me, especially strangers on the internet that don't know me at the end of the day. Somebody commenting, well, I'm going to unsubscribe. Okay. I'm not going to stay up at night. Some other person on the internet that fundamentally doesn't know me leaving a comment like on my does not keep me up at night. It really truly doesn't. Nor does it alter the way in which I treat people in real life and on the internet. As I said, I'm a real person. Otto is a real person. LaDonna is a real person. Him is a real person. You all are real people out there. You're not just this avatar. You're not just these words right here. Okay. You are a flesh and blood person. And I think that we all forget that, whether we are consuming it, whether we are a content creator. And that is, I think there are such wonderful things that technology does. Him's in the UK and he's here with us. Do you know what I mean? I'm in Ohio, right? Kim, she's off in Arizona, but yet we're all sharing this space together. And it does create this feeling of being with one another. But at the end of the day, we are not. And there's nothing wrong with acknowledging that we are separated by thousands, literally, thousands of miles. Um, it doesn't take away from this experience, but I do think that we have to remember that, you know, just because it's the internet doesn't mean that the person on the other side that we are communicating to, consumer, content creator to other content creator, however, the combination, there are real people behind that. Okay. I agree, Jane. I would like to think that. I think that the idea of who you are transcends all types of social media. And I think that, again, social media has can be an incredibly powerful tool. I think that it really does depend on one of two things. The first thing, I would say the secondary thing, is the person who is putting out content, but ultimately the decision is really up to you as a consumer um, to decide what it is that you are going to consume. If you are choosing to consume individual or groups of individuals who are engaging in toxic behavior or are engaging in behavior that you find questionable in some way to you, not not to what I am going to define toxic behavior as. But if you are finding behavior that is detrimental or questionable to you, why would you continue to support it? And listen, and I will own this right here, right now. I want to make this very clear that I know that there are going to be some people that are going to be like, well, Michael's talking about toxic behavior, but isn't what he is doing, isn't that just creating to the toxic environment? I would say that I'm not going to invalidate your perspective. I have welcomed you here. Some of you may decide that this isn't for you. And well, gosh, Michael, you're part of the problem. I'm going to unsubscribe. I'm not going to continue to support the channel. I can't do anything but respect that. But I do think that the importance, the message, the again, about hopefully being a voice and using the platform to get the people that have provided me the platform the ability to have different perspectives to better discern the kinds of content that they are consuming, the products that they are purchasing, the voices that they are listening to, the voices they are being influenced from. I do want you guys to feel that you are being more informed. I do think that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different resellers, whether it's vintage and antiques, whether it's home goods, whether there's like the eBay reselling community, the vintage and antique reselling community, the Instagram selling community, you know, there's so many different communities out there. And ultimately, fundamentally, I would hope that a lot of the things that we are talking about you can apply in those different communities. As Elizabeth said earlier, I do hope in some way that it may inspire you or put thought into you in your real life to begin to help you better discern situations and that you take greater confidence in this isn't right for me, this is right for me. let me engage in this even more. It doesn't have to be, obviously, we're talking about a very traditionally negative kind of thing, toxic behavior and environments, but you don't have to apply this just to negative situations. You can also take this and apply it to equally positive things. You know, content that you find uplifting, content that you are inspired by. Engage in that content. Make that, bring that to the forefront. Tell the algorithm, this is what I want to consume, because it's only going to give you what you invest in at the end of the day. It's not just going to spit out toxic behavior and people that are overly dramatic and constantly stuck in victimhood. It's going to show you the things that you are engaging in. Okay. Um, Rob, the antique community is one of the few places I haven't seen toxic comments. Well, everybody's experience in life is different. I Rob, if only. Judy is saying, oh, we've got a question. How do you deal with someone who you are dealing with who is toxic? That to me is hard. Do you just walk away? You know, Judy, uh, it's situational, I guess, at the end of the day, though, isn't it? Um, as I said earlier, the vast majority of things that I have seen that have been toxic behavior that I personally, one, do not want to engage in, and two, I really, quite frankly, just don't want people who are going to engage in that kind of behavior around me in any capacity, either professionally and or personally, especially both. Um, if it's something stupid, like I'm just like, oh yeah, she's so bitchy, and I'm just like, whatever, and I'm just gonna walk away from it. There was, interestingly, Judy. Ooh, let's get deep on this one. I was having a conversation with my mother, and there was a specific behavior. It was there was a group event that had happened, and there was a comment. There was a story that was told, not a comment, but a story that was told. And I found it to be incredibly vulgar. And by vulgar, I don't mean profane. I mean vulgar. It was, and when I use vulgar, there's actually a couple of instances outside of this specific one that I think of. Vulgar to me is when you take incredibly personal information that you know about somebody, and then you then communicate that to other individuals, and you do it in such a way that is meant to ridicule and demean that person. I find that kind of behavior to be incredibly vulgar. I am not the kind of individual that makes excuses for that kind of behavior. Um, I in talking to my mother about that situation, I have to say that in hindsight, I think that I am incredibly disappointed in myself, truth be told. And the reason is because I failed to say, "What are you doing? Like, who who do you think you are right now?" And that is me. Like that is, listen, if you have met me in real life, I was raised that. I will tell on my mom right now. I hope she don't mind. She gonna come up the stairs. I'll get the story out before she can get up the stairs. It happened just yesterday. You see somebody being treated a certain way, and we were in a grocery store, and the checkout lady, she was demeaning to the bagging lady, and my mom was like, "You don't got to speak to her that way." That's how I was raised. Do you know what I mean? In that situation, I was so incredibly like caught off guard that it wasn't like it was fully computing. It computed in my head like oh, I got you, I see who you are. But it wasn't like you're really nasty. Like you're just a hateful, nasty person. Do you, you know what I mean? It was interesting because it was well, anyhow, I don't want to get too deep down in the rabbit hole. I think ultimately, Judy, it is situational. And I do believe that things happen for a reason. I believe and I'm thankful for having had that conversation. And I would say I really don't want anything to do with that individual. Um, I think that the distance is definitely allow that to speak for itself. But, I think in those kind of situations, sometimes it can catch you so off guard that you're just like, what? Um, and sometimes, and I think that this is part of my problem, is that I have a hard time achieving the balance like in the moment because then I'm immediately like attack and I don't think that's constructive. I don't. But I think it really did help put into better perspective of like, damn, you should have just flat out said, you're an asshole. Like just true tea. Like that's the true tea of it all. You know what I mean? Whether or not I like or dislike the person that they were talking about should never come into play because I do, and I have found this to be true. You do it to one, you do it to all. Have you ever heard of that saying? You do it to one, you do it to all. In other words, if you are willing to treat or say certain things about other individuals, there ain't no stopping you from doing it to me. I've definitely learned that lesson the hard way. I have struggled, I think, with the idea or the concept of I don't want to be that person that, like, okay, so Sally Joe she saw me talking to Debbie over here. And Sally Joe's going to pull me aside and be like, Michael, I just want to let you know that Debbie, she did X, Y, and Z to me. And it's like you don't want to be that person that bases your interaction because Debbie ain't doing nothing but treating me nice. You know what I mean? Debbie's not doing that. She didn't do none of that to me, but damn, she done did that to Sally Joe over here. It's like you have to kind of that is such a difficult, and I bet so many of you out there have been in that situation where it and it's like Debbie's, she's not giving me a reason, but Sally Joe's over here telling me that she did X, Y, and Z. But dang, I don't want to be the person that's like not being Debbie's friends because Sally Joe's over here telling me not to be friends with this person, even though she done did this to her. The problem is that then Debbie ends up whatever happens, and then all of a sudden Debbie's doing it to me, and then I'm gonna act what surprised? Like, dang, you know what I mean? Like, should have listened to Sally Joe, but I didn't want to be the person that was like prejudging Debbie off of Sally Joe because Debbie was nice to me. But I have found time and time again, do it to one, you do it to all, right? The collaborative dog, woof. I think as a viewer, we need to remind ourselves that we don't really know the person we are watching. We are watching an edited version of that person. I agree with you. I have definitely learned that even as a content creator interacting with other content creators, as I said earlier, most of the time it is through distance and it is only through an extended period of time typically that you really fundamentally get to know who somebody is in their core, you know? But I do think that that is absolutely um, important to remember. All right. Yeah, keyboard warriors, they really are. I have a thing, and hear me out about this, and I'm going to speak to Instagram about this. I don't know how. it could apply to YouTube. What I have noted on Instagram is that some of the most nastiest comments consistently are coming from private accounts. And if you're not on Instagram and you're like, what's a private account? A private account has an account on Instagram. They are a user on Instagram. However, anything that they post is private. And the only way that you can see it is if you request from that private account a friendship. And if they approve it, then you can see the things that they are publishing. But up until that point, you can't see anything that they're publishing. You can't comment on anything that they've posted because it's private. Yet, a private account can go and post on any person's account that they want to. I am stating this, and I think that this should be, and I think that it would be such an incredibly powerful tool to like just get rid of a lot, not all, but a lot of toxicity on Instagram is that if you have a private account on Instagram, the only people's posts that you can comment on are the people you've approved to see your content. In other words, if somebody is going to get on a public platform, put themselves out there, right, wrong, or indifferent, agree or disagree, I think, quite frankly, that it's fair that the only people who should get to comment in a public space on a public post are people who have public accounts. But Michael, I'm posting stuff of X, Y, and Z, and I don't want the public to see it. Respect. I respect that. But then if that's the way that it is and social media to you is I want to work with a small group of people, then allow that small group of people in and only interact with that small group of people. Because it just seems like I said to me, every time I go to click on that and I'm like, this is gonna be a private account. Like the nastiest the comments, you click on it, guess what? It's a private account. It's a private account. It's a private account. It's a private account. No, I know. I said what I said, and I don't. Um, Resin Bell is replying to Judy. Resin Bell ain't gonna walk away from it, right? Um, Kim says, I have had to walk away from a toxic person to protect my own well-being mentally. Others, we have talked and worked through issues. And again, I think that, Kim is reiterating, I think that it is situational. And I do think, and Kim, please correct me if I'm wrong. It's sounding like, though, too, it's the depth to which you've developed a relationship with that individual. Sometimes the relationship is superficial at best, right? Other times you are more emotionally invested. Um, and sometimes, and I do believe this, that I think that sometimes being a good friend means being able to speak the truth to your friend. And if that other person sincerely believes you as a friend, they should be able to receive the truth, not as a degrading kind of thing, but as a way in which to help you grow as an individual. Unfortunately, you don't know until you know, which has definitely gotten me into more than one sticky situation. Um, but I think that it has to do with the depth, and sometimes, you know, there are toxic behaviors that you're like, can you stop just gossiping? But like, it's just like it's not deep gossip, but at the same time, it's kind of like I don't really have time for this. I've got a lot of stuff to do, and listening to the gossip of it all just really isn't it for me, you know? Um, yeah. Some people do like to make trouble just to get a rise out of them. I absolutely agree. And I think that it's one of those things, again, speaking to the idea or the concept of, they go low, you go high. And I think that sometimes allow yourself, allow yourself the time that you need. And you don't always have to have this quick, rapid fire kind of comeback to it all. Sometimes you do need to take a moment, digest it all, and maybe you do need to come back to it. And you do need to say, hey, Patricia, you know what? The other day when you said X, Y, and Z, I quite frankly found that to be incredibly degrading, and I don't agree with it. And do you want to discuss it or not? And you know what, to Kim's point, sometimes you're just like, oh, okay, I gotcha. And you just move on because it's not worth it, right? Jamie is saying, okay, well, great minds, Jamie. That's what they say. Yes. Amy is saying that if you don't respond, it alleviates or the concept of owning your own power, right? Owning your own behavior. And this is what I'm really starting to grow into, and this has come through a lot of conversation. I definitely, and I don't think that it was, I'm going to share a little bit of a personal kind of thing. I definitely um, or have had a tendency to be, I can still be an emotionally reactive person, right? Richard really has helped me balance this out. Richard is a much more responsive kind of individual. And sometimes I think that that's an incredibly important distinction. And again, when we talk about toxic environments and toxic behavior, is, and to Amy's point about, not allowing somebody the power of an emotional reaction from you, I think that that does carry tremendous weight. And Amy, I definitely would agree with that. And I agree with it simply because I have, in many instances, emotionally reacted, and I've kind of fed into the toxic environment and or behavior myself, truthfully. Um, and I do believe that sometimes you need to take the moment to respond and not react. I think that in responding, you are owning your own power again about going high, right? Going high again isn't about not necessarily saying anything, but it's about responding with thought and with self care and self dignity, right? Instead of reacting, right? The reaction is that emotional knee jerk, what did you say? Kind of response, right? That is giving somebody the power of literally making you feel that then is making you behave in a way in which you hopefully, traditionally wouldn't engage in. And I do think that that's incredibly important. But I am really starting to advocate for responding. And I think that to my own detriment, I didn't really it wasn't like I had a clear distinction between reacting and responding. It was all just about respond or reacting. Um, and it has been a huge blessing to have a partner that is more responsive, um, more thoughtful, in the way in which they then engage in it. So yeah, I think that you can be engaging and that you can respond, and that you in responding is I have found responding and not reacting, that in responding, it's like I have found such, I have found much more tremendous power within myself by asserting by asserting that boundary. I have been incredibly proud of myself by not reacting, and by also not allowing that behavior to go unchecked, right? Fran, she followed a reseller who had over 80,000 subscribers, who, when she got married, kept hinting about wedding gifts. I couldn't believe it. Um, Again, I think that that's listen, it's subjective. I don't know that I would do that, truth be told. I think that for anybody that would be a content creator or that is a content creator, again, this is just a different perspective. Like, don't hint about it because it's disingenuous. I think at the end of the day, it starts to read, and Fran, if I'm correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. The problem, again, forgetting that there are real people on the other side of the screen, is, oh, well, we're getting married, and it would be nice if we had just come out and say, hey, look, we registered at wherever you registered at. Here is a link. Listen, we in need. I would love these things. I know y'all support me. If you want to throw down a wedding gift, I would greatly appreciate it. But like, lean into it. Just be like full on with it. And again, demonstrate the respect to the audience that has provided you 80 plus thousand. You're getting married. Congratulations. Um, we're in need of some gifts. If you could help support us on the new home, we would really appreciate it. If not, right on. I appreciate y'all watching my videos. Just lean into it. Just give people a truthful option and let people make their own decisions. And guess what? And this is my biggest advice, is that sometimes the more honest you are, like legitimately, people, there's a really good core solid group of people who are going to support you, because the thing that I think that a lot of people, and I think that in this world we are kind of currently lacking, is just truth, honesty, and integrity. And I think that it is really, the more people that are out there, I as sad as it is, all of a sudden truth and integrity are really starting to come across as very inspirational. That's just kind of where I'm at. Am I crazy? I don't know. Um, Again, it's not about getting everybody to agree with you, but it's about being the person who is demonstrating integrity, and the best way you can demonstrate it is by being truthful and honest. It is. It really truly is. Crazy. I know it's a crazy concept. Could you believe it? Well, Reza, I am appreciative, and I appreciate your appreciation, and I appreciate you too. Sincerely, really and truly. Okay, what do we got? What else are you? What else? What other comments do we got going on here to everybody? Um, well, yes, that is. Thank you, Pammy. That was definitely. I have a feeling I know exactly what you were talking about. Yeah, and here is, this is, I think, let me get it go ahead, and I want to talk um mo- in greater specifics. I think we've been very abstract up until this point. um when I started this reselling journey, I was working full time. I was a retail store manager at the time. And did I start selling when we were still in lockdown? No, we had oh no, wait, maybe yes I did. No, we were not in lockdown. We were not in lockdown. It had to be within, at least in Pennsylvania, because we were not, what did they call it? We were not a oh, like a grocery store. The oh my gosh, I can't remember what it was called. We were not an essential business. Um, so we reopened in April, and I think I started live selling in May. And keep in mind, I didn't want to do it. Like, I wasn't like, I was like, no, I think I'm good. I don't want to. Begrudgingly, I did it, and I was like, you know what? There are some people at the time. There was a small group of us. I was very engaged. Um, with some individuals, and it was, for me, it was a way to kind of, I don't know, share that experience. These were people that I was connecting with on a personal level, and it was just like, okay, well, this is of meaning, so I'm going to participate. It's not that deep. It's once a week. I was a horrified, terrified mess. Did it. It was fun. I survived it. Um, we did it, if I'm remembering correctly. I think we were only doing it once a month, and we did it once a month. No, I think we had originally planned it to be once a month, and it quickly turned into a weekly kind of thing. Um, and I think that, and I was live selling for 3 or 4 months before I started a YouTube channel. Um, and then when I had started the YouTube channel, um, I was very blessed in the growth of the channel. I absolutely was. Um, and if you do go back into my video catalogs and um, everything that I said at the time, I stand behind all of the words that I said, my expressions of appreciation for those that really did help. Um, to build my channel, all of those words were very sincere, and I do stand behind those words. I think that though, as time went on, again, you fundamentally get to discover who people are, and sometimes people's motives aren't just for the sake of friendship. There is an ulterior motive to it. And what I have discovered, especially with social media, is that more often than not, the ulterior motive is about how an individual can better leverage themselves, or more so, how can they better leverage the perception of who they are so that it then gains greater confidence into who that person is. But again, it is about the perception of who an individual is, and that we again have to remember that fundamentally we don't know who we are dealing with until we've invested some time. And again, that some of was online, some of it was in real life. In either situation, again, it takes long. As I said earlier, for me, I will say that it takes longer to get to know somebody fundamentally, um, via the internet than it does in real life. And things can be, I think, easier. I don't know that I want to say hidden, or that the perception of an individual can be upheld a little bit easier for a longer period of time, I feel, than it can in real life. There were definitely situations that occurred. I have to be honest with you. There are some situations that even now to this day, I'm still like, hello, um, what happened? Legitimately, still like, what happened? You know, um, I think there was an instance where I felt that I had a personal connection with somebody and literally ghosted. And if you don't know the ghosted, it means that communication is just stopped. No response, no nothing, no means of communication. And it's just like, okay. Um, there was solace in the fact that I wasn't alone in that treatment, but it still didn't hurt. Um, and again, I guess at the end of the day, there was this idea of perhaps this person felt that I was in some way trying to take advantage of them. It, I think, would have been nice, and again, I'm going to preface this by saying it's an opinion, that I would have been respected as a friend, I thought, and if we were having differences, that when we have a difference that we communicate with one another, especially if I am availing myself to say, what's going on? Let's talk about this, and I get nothing in return. Ultimately, you're put in a position where you do just have to walk away. I am not the kind of person that I'm going to constantly be begging for somebody's what validation, explanation. I'm just not that person. It ain't gonna happen because again, I knew who I was coming into this. I didn't come into this looking for external validation as to who I am. I knew who I was. I don't need, while I appreciate people recognizing qualities that I value in myself, I see those things in myself. It's nice to have that affirmed. It's nice to hear that other people witness and recognize that in me. But again, that's who I thank you. And I'm going to continue to be that person, but that's who I am. So it's, and I try to err on the side of caution, being like, well, maybe they just thought, I don't know. I think that it's incredibly difficult then when it's almost a year later, literally, literally almost a year later, drama ensues. Drama ensues, as has, and again, do it to one, do it to all, do it to one, do it to all. And I didn't take into greater account the way in which this individual treated other people in the past and had consistently treated other people in the past because this person was being nice to me. No, those people, no, no, maybe they're now, see, they must have been taking advantage of this person. Um, they deserved it because clearly they did something to make this person who's so nice to me treat them that kind of way, right? Obviously, that's what happened. Well, no, yeah, no, actually got treated the exact same way. um, I will say, and I do want to preface this by I don't feel bad about anything. I don't. I'm not woo-wooing about it. I don't feel a victim about it. I As crazy as it is to say, I'm very thankful for it. Um, I am a person of great faith. Maybe you believe in fate, maybe you believe in destiny, maybe it's just chance or luck. But when I really look at those situations, the people that were in my life, the way in which they behaved, they remove themselves from my life. I do believe that those instances and that presence not being in my life allowed for greater presences to be in my life. And I do feel that while when it was transpiring, those things were not good feelings. But I do try to learn from things, even from things that I think are very overwhelming, things that you're left questioning, things that are really evoking emotion from you. Those are the prime opportunities to learn something, whether it's about yourself or other people, both. And in hindsight, the way in which everything went down, I'm grateful for because I'm sitting here today and I'm really happy with where I am today. Um, and sadly, I see a continuation of behavior from 3 years ago from certain individuals that are still engaging in that kind of behavior. And I think that incredibly, even though some of these individuals have gone out of their way to discredit and have, in several instances, publicly slandered me, I still have compassion and I actually have pity for those individuals because I do sincerely believe that if you are personally fulfilled, and again, knowing who you are when you're getting into this, when you feel fulfilled in your personal life, then all of like the business stuff, this person said this person, like I'm like, whatever. Like, don't disturb my peace. Like, no, I'm good. I'm thankful. I very much, as crazy as it is to say, I would not change it. I wouldn't. I'm good with it. Like, that's like, I think that's the karma of it all. And I think that again, we're like, oh, karma's gonna get, I'm living the karma. Like, I'm living the karma. I'm not still, well, I never did, truth be told. I never did engage in toxic behavior. Some people would like to say that I have. I get it. And maybe I can invalidate people's feelings. I don't know. Um, but I'm good. I'm really good. So yeah. But yes, um, same said person then decided to insert themselves into something all for, the virtue signaling, I'm going to defend my friend and how dare you treat my friend this way and blah blah blah, blah. Meanwhile, okay, but I haven't heard from you in a year, and the next thing I know is that you want to come out here and call me toxic, gaslighter. Like, talk about gaslighting much. Okay, got it. Yeah. Um, so, Monica, I hope that that was a little bit more direct. There have been situations where I think, again, and this is so important, is in not knowing somebody months, years spent investing in individuals, trying to uplift them, trying to be a solid friend, trying to inspire them, contributing towards their business, contributing towards their personal lives. It's all about that. You don't there was that audio meme that was going around on Instagram, and I'm about to drop the B word, but um it's oh, so you forgot about the time that I was nice to you, and nice again, and nice again, and again I was nice to you, and I was nice to you, and again I was nice to you, but now I'm the bitch, right? It's like that time when it came to being like a real stand-up true friend and saying to you, "Hey, you got to get your shit together." And then it was all of a sudden you're the bad guy because how dare you like accuse me of lying, because you are. And I'm not a good friend if I'm just sitting here passively, like, you're, you know what I mean? Like, years, years. Um, it is what it is. That's just one of those things. Again, it's a situation that I can't lie, that one still gets me a little bit. Um, but I can't say that I would want it to have changed or played out any different kind of way, because who knows how that might have altered my life, and I might not be here. So I'm good with that though too. So uh, anyhow, what are y'all talking about there? Punishment with one another, and I think y'all are being. I think you're being that kind of weird. What's going on out there? I don't know. Well, hello, Crystal. How are you doing today? I'm just going I'm going through. Jamie's saying, I think there's a funny, we're all friends here way to talk about that stuff. And there's a guilt trip way of like, buy this junk because I'm going to be home. Buy this junk or I'm going to be homeless if you don't. Here's the deal. I know this is crazy, but there's this thing called like jobs that if you're not selling enough, instead of guilting the people, that are giving you a platform reevaluate. I reevaluated how I'm doing my selling. Um, and don't make that the fault of the people that are providing you a platform. Just saying, go and get a like a part-time job. You could go get a part-time job, and it would probably take a tremendous amount of stress off of your actual live sales. And then once you take that stress from yourself, guess what? I could almost guarantee that your viewing audience, whether they're there to view, to chat, or to buy, they're going to pick up on that vibe and they're going to feel more comfortable. And guess what? They might even be more likely to buy something because they don't feel like they're being guilted into it. Crazy and revolutionary, I know, but it's just a perspective. Who am I? I don't know. Susan's scared. Don't be. We're all here together. We're virtually holding hands. Susan, okay? Touch the finger. Buy my stuff if you want to. It's supporting a small business. I mean, it is. It really, truly is. You are supporting a small business. I am a small business. Um, I definitely, I agree with that sentiment. I don't know, and I don't know. I guess in the way in which it's communicated, I can say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Or I can say, "Hey, how are you?" Do you know what I mean? Like it's all about intonation. I think a lot of it, and I think again, it's the problem is when there is a pattern of behavior, and the pattern of behavior has been made to maybe influence you or put you into a position of guilt into buying this stuff out of guilt and then being like and then it's kind of emphasized and it's what are those it's in the not parentheses it's in the bracket things parentheses no what are the things called grammatically I don't know but then it's like supported with being like and you're supporting a small business too okay well you already lost me anyhow so just um okay y'all are punishing one another still okay. That's all right, Marie, you're here. Facts are not attacks. Amen, Miriam. I agree with you. I agree with you, right? Again, if the biggest, and this is, I'm a big proponent for this, and this has gotten too many people in trouble, right? Mean what you say and say what you mean. Because here's the deal there ain't nothing that I said privately that I wouldn't say publicly. There isn't nothing that I have said privately that I wouldn't say to you to your face. There, I just that's how I roll. And there have been too many instances that this is more observational. There have been too many instances where I have people seen people too steady running at the mouth and they're too steady again and an opinion is that they're too busy running at the mouth about somebody else because it's speaking to an insecurity that if they were to focus on themselves and speak about themselves that people would somehow be disinterested so vis-a-vis they've got to talk smack about somebody else in order for other people to listen to them that's sad that's sad. That again, that's just another real sad thing. Okay. So again, just a different perspective. Keep that in mind when you do hear somebody running their mouth negatively about somebody else. I think that there is a great line by Queen Herbie. She is on Instagram. She is a great rapper, amazing. But in it, she's saying one of the lines is what Sally's saying. What is it? What Sally's saying about Janie is saying more about herself. Do you know what I'm saying? Like sometimes you got to take a step back and you got to recognize that the negative things that somebody is saying about somebody else is more of a reflection of who they fundamentally are than it is about the other person. And I think that that's an incredibly important piece of advice and something that I often try to remind myself of, right? Let's see, what else have you guys got going on? My take with the shopping videos is they are not accurate values or guarantee you will make money buying the same item. We have to remember that YouTube is mostly for entertainment. Absolutely, Christine, and that is most certainly something that we did talk about. Um, Content creator or reseller, there is a difference. And sometimes again, when we talk about toxic behavior, that is another example of it, is that again, leading with integrity and honesty. There's nothing wrong with saying at the start of the video, and I guess this is the problem, and I do have empathy for it. And this is where ownership, I do think, comes into play with this, is that as a content creator, if a content creator chooses to focus time, energy, and effort on creating thrifting videos, goodwill videos, especially, and then people are like, well, how do you make a living selling that junk? They're not making a selling the junk. They're making a living because people are watching the video and they're trapped. It's a trap. Um, and listen, I listen, if they're a content creator and they are doing it full time, and or a good portion of their income stems from creating content, and the thing that most people are searching for on YouTube, and it is a fact, when it comes to vintage and the antiques, is thrifting and or goodwill. In that there's like goodwill thrifting, vintage goodwill. It's very much about the perception of, it's very entry level. Anybody can go into a thrift store, anybody can spend the $3 to find the $3,000 item. It's all about the fantasy, it's about the buy-in, it's about the entertainment value, and it's about people watching the videos and that ad revenue going into the pocket, and it's not about the selling of the items. Does that make sense? Right? And you have to remember that. But again, I think that it's difficult because the trap is, what do you say to people at the beginning of, I want you to watch this Goodwill video because I need to make the money here. But if I don't buy anything, then you don't watch it. And I've got to buy this junk so that there's something here in the Goodwill. I've got to present it as I'm a reseller. Well, how can I resell if I'm not buying anything? But then y'all are being like, well, that's some junk. You can get that on eBay for half the price you didn't just paid for it at Goodwill. But it's a trap, you know? Support those content creators that are going out into antique malls. Again, if you want to look at reselling content, if you want to look at high quality items, I got a news flash for you. Start searching for antique malls, vendor malls, vintage antique shop alongs, antique shop with me. Leave out thrifting and Goodwill if you want to see items that are a little bit more elevated, that give you a little bit more realistic idea of, if you do want to make more money reselling, or if you want to be a full-time reseller, look at those things. Tip. Because if you're looking at, and I'm not saying that it is not possible, but for 90%, for the vast majority of people out there, fact, 90% of us, the vast majority, I'm making up the 90%. The vast majority of us are not going to be able to sustain and make a full time living by going into Goodwill. That is not to say that there is not approximately a minority of people that can't do it, but the vast majority of us are not. And again, it's about perception and not the reality, which does engage in toxic behavior. Um, Jane, did you see me like that? Did that come up on your thing? I saw it the other day. The easiest way to upset an honest person is to tell them a lie. The quickest way to upset a dishonest person is to tell them the truth. Amen, sister. Again, we have definitely found that to be the truth. Hi, Tina. How are you today? Um, this is the interesting thing. I think that um, there are so many um, channels out there, and I would just say that while there are certain things and situations that I have definitely found myself in, I observationally have recognized that, it's like here's the vintage and antique umbrella, and then underneath that vintage and antique umbrella, there are social circles that exist, right? And in just about every single one of those social circles, there's the someone or someones. It's human nature at the end of the day. That's not the issue, right? Not everybody's going to get along. That is not the issue. The issue is how people choose to engage in behavior, and in behavior that is detrimental to another individual. That is toxic behavior. That creates a toxic environment. And I do think that the utilization of your social media to then influence individuals, to then discredit that other person, is incredibly toxic. Incredibly toxic. Gail, what you got, lady? Longtime viewer of many of these channels, but just starting to buy on live sometimes. Has there always been a tip option on PayPal? I don't like it. Um, the tip option has not always been on eBay. What I will say, um, okay, I'm just going to say it. You have to turn it on. When you send an invoice, there's like a little toggle thing before you hit send. I do apologize if the tip option has ever been on one of my invoices. It's definitely an accident. So I can't, I don't know who you're talking about. I will, again, I can't help it, but I'm going to err. It it is easy to accidentally turn it on because if you're doing it on your phone. I always send on my phone, so I don't know. But if you're sending on your phone, the send button, the tip option, I don't know if it's right above it or below it, but it is easy to hit it. But it is a little toggle switch that your seller does have to turn on. So if it's always on and you're always getting it from a seller, then they're turning it on. But it's an option, and you don't ever have to do it, Gail. You don't ever. Clickbait drives her crazy. Ow, she just can't sleep. Kim has learned over time that there can be three people in a situation, and there will be at least three versions of what happened. Perceptions are based on your own life experiences. I agree with you, Kim. There is also another saying, of course, that involves the number three. There's always three sides to the story: your version, my version, and the truth. The truth typically is that which lies in between those two versions, right? Um, Judy is just thanking everyone. She's giving out the hugs. She's got trouble with dealing with toxic people. All of your answers have helped. Again, that is amazing. I, for me, Judy, my biggest thing is that you know what's right for you in your life and don't accept anything less. If you see somebody engaging in behavior that is directed to you or to someone else, whether you feel comfortable addressing it or not, the biggest thing is to trust yourself, remove yourself, and don't allow that person, that behavior, that energy in your life. Move on. You are better off without it. And I promise you, I am a living testament to it. When you don't hold on to those things and when you don't engage in that behavior, good things really do come out of it. And you can live the karma instead of having to wait around for it. Could you tell a story about a way specifically? I really don't understand what you were getting at. It's difficult to, hmm, Nan, I don't know if this is directed to me or to someone else. I thought that I did give like some more specific examples. Um, in every group, there can be some troublemakers. People like that are immature and should think a little before they speak. Jane, give me a super chat. Hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm not going to use it to pay my rent or anything, but I do appreciate it. I always forget that that's on, but thank you for the reminder. I greatly appreciate it. The collaborative dog says if we were talking about online life, watch long enough and you will figure it out. A viewer might not see the action behind the scenes, but I do think that it will show in other ways. I agree with you. Um, yeah, I definitely agree with you on that one. You know what? Jane, this is also something that I do want to talk about, and I think that we're going to leave it here. And I want to leave this on a positive note. There are so, oh my gosh, I am so far behind in the comments. Holy moly. Ah, you guys, thank you. Oh my gosh, I am so super far behind. Oh my gosh, I really apologize. You guys clearly can identify that now. I want to first and foremost say how appreciative I am. I am so glad that the conversations are resonating with you. It really does do my heart proud to see you guys engaging with one another here in the live chat. Please make sure to remember that just because the live portion of this discussion is over does not mean that you cannot go back, leave a comment in the video. Please don't forget to engage with one another. Engage with one another in conversation. Remember, just because you engage in conversation doesn't mean that you agree. It just means that you want to, again, respond to one another and not react to one another. Do so in a constructive way, and you might just find a new friend, as crazy as that is to say. Jane, you did pull up a comment here, and I think that this is incredibly important. Is that this boils down to ownership, and I do want to leave this on a positive note. And I think that if we look at ownership, to it, the easiest way to mitigate toxic behavior is just because that you see something doesn't mean that you then have to say something. In other words, you don't have to insert yourself into it. And I think that that's an incredibly powerful statement because I think sometimes we can engage in toxic behavior even though it's not the intention. There is the saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That holds true for a specific reason, is that just because I don't have ill intent doesn't mean that my actions don't can't have uh, just because I don't have ill intentions doesn't mean that my behavior can't then produce ill results or detrimental results. That was super inarticulate. I do apologize. um, you have to own that sometimes, and I've seen this happen more often than I would like to admit, is that sometimes somebody will say something, and I'm sure this is probably going to happen with this video. I'm good with it. They will be like, "Oh, well, so and so just said that. Fat Birds is not on tonight. Thank you, Kim." Oh, they still got the C. They don't feel good. Remember, blowing kisses to you, Fat Birds. I love you, but I ain't gonna hug you. You can get a blown kiss. I want you to feel better. No fat birds tonight because they're not feeling good. So you have to blow kisses to them. You can hug them if you're good with it. I am one of those people. I'm like, oh, germs, get away. Um, but owning it, I think that something that is really, oh, what? You want me to continue? Is that I'm hungry. Um, you can play a role in it even though you don't have ill intent. Sometimes you're like, oh, well, I want to look out for so and so. Well, I feel like they said this about this person. Um, and again, I want to say this is that, especially in the previous conversations of the conversations, I had tonight. Oh, well, it might be talking about so and so. Here's the deal. if what I am saying is making you think of an individual, I'm not owning that. That's that person's behavior, right? Again, and you're going to choose to then insert yourself in it and be like, well, Michael said this, and I'm just saying this, and you can do that. It is what it is. Um, but you are then condoning and supporting toxic behavior. You're engaging in it in yourself. And haven't honestly given a whole lot of thought as to what that is. I do think that this is observational. I think sometimes, especially when it comes to social media, there are individuals that inherently get a little bit closer to like a content creator or a reseller or an influencer, and they begin to have a more invested experience with that individual, and they want to look out for, they want to protect, they want to have that person's back. Here's the thing: is that if you hear somebody saying negatively about me, I'll use myself as an example. Um, I don't need to know about it, right? You're not gaining value to me by saying so and so said this about you, because I don't, you know what I mean? I don't care. And I know that there are people out there that don't necessarily have that same perspective. They do care. Um, but what I would say is that then don't be a harbinger of that bad news. In other words, don't lay that at somebody else's doorstep. Because if you hear something and you know that something isn't true, or you do not believe that to be true to that person, then don't take that and lay that at their doorstep. Because if it doesn't affect the way in which you think or feel towards that individual, then why burden them with that? Right? Why burden them with that? And I've seen that happen way too often. And quite frankly, I have seen that specific behavior be the impetus behind a lot of, and this is more observational, but I have seen that to be the impetus between a lot of disagreements with folks, because somebody said something, somebody heard it, they reinterpreted it, right? And then communicated it back to the reinterpretation of what the person said was reinterpreted and communicated to the other individual. And it created then a conflict between two people that it didn't need to be there. But somebody felt the need to get validation, seek value, get recognition from it, have somebody's back, but yet they didn't communicate that. Um, and again, I unfortunately have seen that happen far too often. So just food for thought. If you ever feel like, oh, I should do this, maybe probably shouldn't, especially if it doesn't change the way that you think or feel about somebody. Um, don't don't take that burden and make that into somebody else's burden. So, well, Kim just put there in the chat too. No, Pat, thank you. Thank you. It was the text message. Ah. Melanie is loving the integrity in the community. Thank you. She's only had good experiences. Before we do go, since I can take a few more minutes, is that I do want to just say this. Um, I can't take it when someone names some name. I can't take it. Oh, the Mary Widow is just like, name the names, name the names. Um, yeah. This again, geez, you guys were really in the chat. I feel I got really behind. Holy moly, I am so sorry. Um, okay, so any old how. Next week, we're gonna do something a little bit different. We're gonna do something a little bit different. Next week, we are going to have a little bit of an open forum. And what we are going to do is we are going to, and I want you to start thinking about it now, and I'm going to provide time and opportunity for you to input um, your questions, the topics that you want to discuss. I will discuss them. No pre-planning. Um, yeah, I mean, again, that's just, do you know what I'm saying? And again, I do fundamentally, I feel like it's important to talk about the behavior. I don't, quite frankly, um, this is more of a response than a reaction. A reaction would be like, yeah, this person, they did this. That to me is a very emotional kind of thing. And I think to what Amy said earlier, it does allow then somebody a little bit of power over you. Um, I think I do have, and admittedly, I do think I have a little bit more of a luxury because I really am happy with where I'm at in life. So I don't really care. I understand that it might be frustrating for some of you, but again, this is about the behavior and not the individual. It's again about bringing awareness to. I think that if you do watch and you are critical when you are watching content creators and you are maybe looking at the comments or reading the comments and you are seeing them say certain things, you are seeing them consistently engage in certain dialogues that it's there, it's written on the wall. And again, some people do it unabashedly. Um, and what I would say to you is that as troubling as it is to see the individual do it, it is even more troubling to me to see individuals support it, excuse it, and actually embolden that kind of behavior. That is the importance and the main point of the conversation tonight. It's not about any individual or any individuals. Okay. Um, so yeah, that's where we're at with it. So next week, open forum. You guys are going to bring your comments. You're going to bring me your questions, and I'm going to sit here for the first time ever, and I'm going to answer them live with you guys. Oh Lord, be nice. Just because you ask it doesn't mean I'm going to answer it. I'm just saying that. We're just going to set the boundaries. We're going to manage expectations out the gate. Okay. So don't be getting too crazy, but I will do my best. I will do my best. If you want to know, you can ask Emmeline. There you go. Go ask Emmeline. She's just like, I think Emmeline probably wouldn't even care either. She probably let y'all know. So anyhow, I really do want to thank you guys. And again, I know that the conversation tonight definitely is a little like it's not very uplifting and empowering. But I think again, a lot of it has to do with the perspective of it. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a little cathartic. It was a little nice to have a little bit of the unburdening in a public forum. Um, I won't lie. I'm going to own that. Lies, Emmeline, lies. So yes. um, I think, again, it is incredibly important, though, to be able to provide different perspectives um, and, again, allow, hopefully, to inspire people to be okay with being a little bit more critical in their thinking and giving people permission to be like, you know what, I don't think I really do want to support that. There's nothing wrong with that. We only got one life to live, right? You got to make the best of it. Um, so surround yourself in real life and online with positivity and good things. I promise you that's how you get good things to come to you. So, all right, guys, don't forget next week, open forum, be nice, behave. Well, I'm going to do my best. I hope that you all have a great weekend. Of course, Misty and I will be back Tuesday for our live sale. So if you want to join us then, please do join us then. I do have a little certain special something cooked up for next week. You're going to have to watch out for the previews. I'm going to let you know what that super special surprise is. I got a lot of it. We're going to get through it together. So yeah, I hope you'll be able to join me that. So Whether you're following me here on YouTube, on Instagram, on both, I'm going to keep you updated on both platforms. I hope that you guys have a great night, a wonderful weekend. He's right here babysitting. So I hope that you guys all have, ouch, a good night, a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll get to see you next Tuesday. Good night, everyone.